Please join me in welcoming a real-life dream come true, Richard Montaez.
Thank you, Tim. It's a great pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for having us back. First thing I want to say, I was listening to the opening song, and I commend whoever picked that song. That's actually one of my favorite songs, Tears for Fears, or Fears for Tears, and I love the part when he says everyone wants to rule the world. That is so true, and I've realized that I'm not ruling the world, but I'm ruling my own world. And that's what we'll be talking about today. So, great opening song, man. You guys always nail it. Man. I remember a few years back when I spoke at Fort Worth, the stage, everything. And that's what I appreciate about some companies. If you're going to do something, do it the best to your ability. Don't hold anything back. And you've always done that. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and just, start with sharing my story. Some of you have heard it. For some of you, it'd be the first time that you've heard it. And in my story, you're going to see my leadership, and you'll get a sense and a feel for why I have this type of leadership. Because you're going to hear at the very beginning, I never went to school, so I didn't get into leadership in a traditional form. My leadership was actually developed through the leadership of women, my grandma, my mom, and my wife. They impacted my life. And so let me start with that. So let's go back to a time where probably most of you weren't even born. This was the 60s. I was born in a small migrant farm workers camp. And what's interesting, this is the 60s. So what's interesting is I'm not an immigrant. Most people think that I am, but I'm not. But I know the life of an immigrant, because back in those days in the 60s, if you were, Hispanic, Latino, you were already considered an immigrant. You were treated as though you were an immigrant. So there was a small town called Guasti, California. And in this town, it was about 2,000 people. Everybody there picked grapes. It was a wine industry. And at one time, the small town in Southern California was the biggest wine producing area in the country. So that's where I was born. And I was born in a small one room with no bedroom. There was just one room. And across the room was the kitchen. It was a community kitchen. So every morning I had breakfast with 10, 15 different families. And down the hallway were the bathrooms, the showers, kind of like the high school. So that's where I started off. And so let's start off by saying this, that, I was never old enough to have a impact on the civil rights movement of the 60s. But I was old enough that it had an impact on me. Here's what I mean. Remember, I'm a child from the civil rights movement of the 60s. Mama's getting her oldest son ready for school. I am the second oldest, the oldest male of 10 children. So have many brothers and sisters. So Mama's getting her oldest son ready for school. It was during desegregation. So they had picked 8 of us from this all Spanish community to go across town to a different school. They were mixing with the numbers. And I'm getting dressed and I'm crying. And here's how the story goes. Use your imagination, okay? That this is in my story. It's everybody's story, regardless of color, gender, or beliefs or anything like that. This is everybody's story. So I'm crying, and Mama says, "Chion, ¿por qué lloras?" Cry, baby, why are you crying? Porque no quiero ir a esa escuela, because I don't want to go to that school. ¿Por qué no, mijo? Why not, son? Porque todos hablan inglés, because everybody speaks English. I was like, Mom, how can you send me to a school where I struggle with the language? And Mama said, well, it's the law. You have to go. So there was about 8 of us that were picked. And I remember that day, my uncle took me to the bus stop. And here comes the yellow bus, and all of a sudden, there goes the yellow bus. It didn't stop. You should have seen 8 happy kids, and all the adults were wondering, well, what happened? The bus didn't stop. And I'm like, hey, I know what happened. It's some Mexican holiday. We don't have to go to school today. And my uncle looks at me frustrated. No, I can't be it. Then all of a sudden, to my amazement, here's where the story begins. We all heard like a tractor backfiring, and we turned and we looked, and the ugliest green bus you could imagine came to pick us up. And I remember looking at that green bus and telling my uncle, I don't want to get on that ugly thing. I want to ride the yellow bus like all the other kids. Why can't I get on the bus with them? Many times I say that sometimes in order to find your future, you got to revisit your past. Nothing wrong with your past. It's there to help sustain your future. Good or bad, it is there to help you in your future. So one day as an adult, it just dawned on me. I just got it. It just hit me. I said, you know what? That was society of the day and time saying, let's take this group of kids, let's put this on this green bus, parade them across town so that we could show everybody, guess what? These kids, they're not good enough to be like the other kids. They're not good enough to ride the yellow bus. Well, as a child, we took that on, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm not good enough. I struggle with English. I think I'm the wrong color, and I'm riding this ugly green bus. I'll never be like those kids. As much as I want to be like them, I'll never be like them. So we get to school, and a teacher's talking, and we're struggling, and we're looking at each other. Do you understand her? What? And all of a sudden, we hear the sound. And I said, this sound is international. Every child knows this sound. And it was the sound of the recess bell. Lunchtime. Nobody had to interpret that for me. I knew what that meant. It was lunchtime. So me and the other kids that were bused, we stayed together. It's the 60s. It's a different time. And we sat down, and I remember I pulled out my lunch, and just like this, I'm ready to take a bite. And all of a sudden, everybody is staring at me. Why do you think they were staring at me? Because it was a burrito. You have to understand this. This was 1962, 63. The world hadn't seen a burrito yet. Contrary to popular belief, Taco Bell didn't introduce the burrito to the world. Me and my mom did. But the truth was, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed because I struggled with my English. I was embarrassed because I was in that green ugly bus. I was embarrassed because everybody was staring at my lunch. I remember I went home and I told my mom in Spanish, I said, Mama, hazme un bologna sandwich con un cupcake como los otros. I said, Mama, make me a bologna sandwich and a cupcake like the other kids because I want to be like them. And my mom, being a marketing genius that she is, she said, no, son, this is who you are. So the next day she made me 2 burritos. And she said, here's one for you, and here's one to share with a friend. So Wednesday, I had my burrito nightmare. Thursday, I shared a burrito with a friend. Friday, I was selling burritos for 25 cents a piece. And you know what I learned that day? And this is the title of this message today, is all you need is one revelation to create a revolution. What is a revelation? A revelation is something that was always there, but it's been revealed or unveiled to you. It was always there. My first revelation was this. As much as I wanted to fit in and be like everyone else, I realized that I was never created to fit in. I was always created to stand out. That's what I want to tell you. You will never fit in because you were created to stand out. Live your life and stand out. That was my first revelation as a child. Then I did something that I'm not proud of. I quit school at a very, very young age. I won't even tell you, because I wanted to go to work. I felt that I could do more by working versus sitting in a classroom. I struggled so much with learning in a traditional way. But I want you to know that even though I don't have a formal education, I am educated. My education just came in different form. I've spoken at Harvard, Notre Dame, USC, Pepperdine, UCLA, some of the top schools in the country. I've taught leadership classes. So I didn't stay there. And I love to tell this to people. I'm probably the most uneducated, brilliant person you'll ever meet. That's what I want to encourage you. Release your brilliance. You are brilliant. Release it. So quit school, working at a chicken ranch, as a gardener, and at a car wash. So when I'm working at this car wash, a friend of mine, rolls up and telling me he just got a job at Frito-Lay. And I was like, wow, how cool is that? You're working at Frito. And he said, yeah, they're hiring. So I thought, wow, just think if I could get a job at Frito-Lay, I could change the legacy for the Montaez family. And here's where, a lot of the leadership that I use today started. I said that, I don't care what room you're in. When you're in a room full of leaders, there's two types of leaders. One is the leadership of the Pharaoh. The other one's the leadership of the deliverer. What is the leadership of a Pharaoh? Exactly that. What do Pharaohs do? They take people, listen to me. What do Pharaohs do? They take people captive to build everything in their image. Everything looks like them. Everything sounds like them. Everything is about them. Then there's the leadership of the deliverer. What do? They come into your life to help deliver you to be everything that you're intended to be. See, I've had the Pharaohs, the leaders that said, this is how we're going to do it. And I've had the deliverers that helped me, set my game into action. So I went and I got an application at Frito-Lay, and I struggled with reading and writing. So I asked the manager if I could take it home. He said, yeah, sure. I took it home and I had my wife fill it out. And next day I took it back, and I remember he's reading it and I'm nervous. He's staring at me and he's like, did you fill this out? And I said, yes. And he said, you have nice handwriting. So I've been stealing Judy's credit ever since. So I got the job on the spot, 1977. And I thank God for many things in 1977. One thing in particular is they didn't do background checks in those days. I got the job on the spot. Now, I'm not saying I had anything bad to hide. I just didn't have anything good to show, So I was very thankful. Got the job as a janitor. Wanted to run home and tell my grandfather and my dad. And a coincidence would have it that the Frito-Lay plant was maybe a quarter mile, half a mile away from the labor camp. Very interesting how that worked out. And I saw my grandfather and my dad. I told him I got the job. And you think I just graduated from Harvard. And my grandfather said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm the janitor. I have to mop, the place. And my grandfather said something to me that I say that one of the reasons I've been successful. He said this: when you mop that floor, make sure that it shines. And when people see it, they know that a Montaez mopped it. As much as I love Pepsi and Frito-Lay, Hot Cheetos and all that, I realize that, ladies and gentlemen, young people, listen to me. It was never about them. It was always about my last name. No matter what I did, I was going to make sure that at least it shined, even as a janitor. So I've said this, so many times that, it's not always about compensation. Of course, we love compensation. Of course, all that. But that's not where the passion comes from. The passion comes from your last name. The passion comes by you being unique and releasing and making sure that when you mop that floor, that it shines. So I saw that I had an influence. And I've learned this too. Listen, especially to you young people that are just starting off, I'm not trying to influence everyone, only the right ones. You see, when they're the right ones, you help them and they help you. Move on if you're not influencing somebody. So I saw that I had an influence. And people say, what do you mean, Richard? You're the janitor. Well, people were walking into the bathrooms, coming out with a smell, saying, man, it's clean. It smells good. Going into the cafeteria, wow, it's clean in here, looking around. The managers were coming in the morning because I was on the graveyard shift, and they were saying, wow, who cleaned my office? It's spotless. And everybody was pointing to the new janitor. So I saw that I had a Okay, there we are. So I saw that I had an influence without saying one word. How was I influencing them? With my work ethics, by just doing a good job, And I've said this, so many quotes out there that they sound good, but they're wrong. Somebody said you get promoted by who you know. That's not true. You get promoted by who knows you, And what I mean by that is you can say the CEO all you want, but he or she doesn't know you, that's a different story. But when they know you, that's a different story too. When Tim says, who mopped the floor, and he hears your name, I guarantee you he knows who you are. So I took that approach, and destiny would have it that a new CEO came into town. Frito-Lay at the time was struggling. We were losing market share, sales were down, and just competitors were reaching our quality levels, things like that. So this new CEO comes in, he's bold. He shuts down the plants, globally, and that's a big no-no. You never shut down the plant. So we thought, okay, we're going to get laid off, or they're closing the plant down, and they brought us all in, put on a video. You have to understand that was a communication of the day. There was no email. It was a fax or a video. And in this video, this new CEO, Roger Enrico, says, hey, we're struggling, and my executives can't fix this company. I need. Now, this is during when corporate America's command and control. What is command and control? Exactly that. I command, I control. I didn't hire you to think. I hired you to do what I tell you to do. That was the corporate layout for me. So hearing that was like, well, what is this guy saying? For us to act like an owner? Well, everybody in that room didn't pay attention to him. And I was even told, Richard, he's not talking to us, and he's certainly not talking to you. And I did something that I've been doing my whole life, is I broke ranks. You see, sometimes you got to break ranks from the people that you're hanging out with so that you can get what belongs to you. I said, you know what, guys, you can go do whatever you want, but I believe this. I believe this CEO. And let's look at this. He's given everybody the opportunity to act like an owner. When will the janitor ever get an opportunity like this? Of course, I'm going to take full advantage. I went home and I told my wife, hey, the new CEO said this, and my wife, typical leadership of a woman, she said, then act like an owner. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have any education. I didn't have those type of mentors, but I was hungry, and so I remember I went to the sales office because it was right next to the manufacturing site, and I found a salesperson, first one that I saw. I went up to him and I said, hey, can I go with you on my day off? I just need you to teach me the business. I'll do all the work. I'll load the truck. I'll do whatever you tell. And he was so happy. He looked at me like, wow, this is free labor. He goes, you can come on your vacation if you want. So he said, meet me at 5 o'clock in the morning on your day off. So that day off comes, and I'm there at 5 in the morning, and this gentleman teaches me how to pull an order, how to write an invoice, how to load the truck to maximize the space. Taught me how to run a route so that we could minimize our fuel and maximize our time. And when we got to the stores, he taught me how to merchandise. Every time you see our products, they're there for a reason. So here's how it was. This is a long time ago. Like I said, most of you probably weren't even born, but here's what I was loading up: Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos, maybe some sour cream. Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos, maybe some sour cream. And I looked and I saw something. I received a revelation. Now, what's a revelation? Something that was always there, but it's been revealed or unveiled to you. What did I see? I saw the spice rack. I saw people buying spices. And again, I looked at ours. It was like Lay's, Ruffles, Fritos. There was nothing spicy. So I thought, wow, what about, a spicy chip for the people who love that type of flavor? I looked at the sales guy, and he couldn't see what I saw. And I thought about it for a moment. You know what? You know why he couldn't see it? Because he was an expert. Ladies and gentlemen, don't become such an expert that you can't see things anymore. And the people that work for me, I tell them, you know what? Don't bring me ideas everybody can see. Tap into the unseen and pull it out and make it a reality. Get a revelation. So I just said, okay. I went and I told Judy, because Judy's a wonderful cook. I said, Judy, we're going to use your salsa and we're going to put it on chips. She said, what chip? I don't know yet. And I didn't know, so I'm going to the neighborhood grocery store, because at those times we didn't have a bank account. I didn't have no money. So why would I need a bank account? But the gentleman there knew who I was. He would cash my check and we'd buy groceries. And outside on the weekend, there was this young man with his family, 2 kids and his wife. And he'd be selling corn on the cob, calling me lotes. And for $1, he would put chili on it, cheese, hot, whatever you wanted. And this young man inspired me because no one told him he was a street vendor. He stood out there like he was running a 5-star restaurant. I learned something from that guy, the street vendor. So I remember I bought 2, one for me and my oldest son. I took a bite and ready to take a second bite. Revelation, something that was always there. And I remember I took a bite and I looked at it and I said, wow, that looks like a Cheeto. So I said something that I think at one time every great entrepreneur, every great leader has said. I said this, what if I put chili on a Cheeto? What if I go to that meeting? What if I go for that promotion? What if I decide to start a business? What if I go for a political office? What if you're a great leader, you got to say that sometime in your life. What if? So I told Judy, I said, Judy, we're going to put it on Cheetos. She said, great, go to the plant, bring some Cheetos with no cheese. So I remember I went and I filled up a trash bag and with Cheetos with no cheese in it. I put it over my shoulder and I'm walking out the plane and everybody's looking at me like, Richard, you are so ghetto. And, I am ghetto. I grew up in the hood. That's where I learned a lot of my leadership. And I said this, good things come from the hood. And today, that ghetto-ness will still come out. And people say, Richard, you're so ghetto. But I'll say, yeah, but I'm ghetto rich. So remember that. Good things come from the hood. So after, a few tries, we got the mixture just right. Judy took some to her work. I took some to my work. We came back that day and everybody said the same thing. You've got to do something with this, Richard. So Judy said, call the CEO. I said, okay. Now remember, command and control. We're in every country that the government allows. So no one would dare call the CEO unless they were a president. Vice president didn't call the CEOs in those days. So I found the corporate directory because, again, there was no email. It was a phone book. And the first one was CEO. I called him up. And his executive assistant, still my friend today, the leadership of a woman. Remember I said you don't have to influence everyone, only the right one? She was the first one, the gatekeeper. And I began to tell her, hey, I saw, Mr. Enrico's video and I'm acting like an owner. And I told her, and besides, I was employee of the month 2 months in a row. And she's like, who are you? And I said, well, I told her who I was. I don't recognize the name. She said, do you run California? And I said, no, I work in Southern California. She said, oh, you're the vice president of Southern California. I said, no, I work in the plant. She said, oh, you're the vice president of operations. I said, no, I work inside. She said, are you the director? No. Plant manager? No. Who are you? The guy that mops the floors. And she said, hang on. And I know she did something because when Roger got on the phone, he was so excited. So I know that, she was influencing him on my behalf. And he said, I heard you got an idea. I began to tell me the only way I knew, I just started telling, hey, I got this idea. I saw your video. You said, act like an owner. And by the way, I reminded him that, I was employee of the month 2 months in a row. And to my amazement, he said, I'll be there in 2 weeks. I'm coming to see you. Hung up the phone. I was like, oh my God, I did it. He's coming to see me. And, I realized like, wow, it's happening. But then protocol goes into action. Remember, this is command and control. So the CEO's admin called the president, who called the senior vice president, who called the vice president of operations, who called the plant director, who called the plant manager, and the conversation was all the same. Who let the janitor call the CEO? Who's this Richard guy? So by the time the plant manager got it was a long time ago. I mean, he came out gunning for me. It must have been about 15, 20 minutes. Now, this is during a time when managers could talk to their workers just about in any, fashion, form or way. If you don't understand what I mean, you can ask your fathers or your grandfathers. It's just the way it was. I'm not saying it was right or wrong. It's just, it was wrong, but we took it. So he came and, he cussed me out and yelled at me and said, who do you think you are? He goes, you're going to do the presentation. And I remember he said, you realize what you've done? Everybody's coming. Now I got to paint this place. You're doing the presentation. He walked away and I thought, oh my God, I'm doing the presentation. I've never even done homework. So I remember I went home and I told my wife, hey, I'm going to get fired. She said, why? And I said, because the CEO's coming. Everybody's mad. But, I said this typical leadership of a woman. She tells me, Richard, calm down. It's not that bad. we're going to go to the library, check out a book on how to develop a marketing strategy. And we did that. There's no Google. You got to work for your information. So we went, picked out 3 books. I actually got 1 book, and I copied 3 paragraphs because they sounded good. Did I understand them? No. But it sounded good. So, a marketer would say. So we made 100 bags. I'm a little bit of an artist. I still have my original drawings. I should have brought one so you could see it. Maybe next time I'll show it to you. We made 100 bags, me and my 3 sons. And I went and bought my first tie for $3.50. And I had my neighbor make it into a knot. So that way, the night before, that way in the morning, I just put it on and get ready. So the day came, got my 100 bags, got my presentation, put on my tie. And Judy does something for me that I make sure that it's a part of my everyday life. She did 3 things. She inspired me, she encouraged me, she reminded me. The word inspire comes from the Greeks. It simply means to breathe life into someone. The second word is to encourage. It means to take courage and put it in somebody's deepest being that they stand up and they're never the same again. I always warn young people, stay away from people who discourage you, hang out with people who encourage you. And the last thing she did, she reminded me, and people say, reminded me of what? Of the value that I was to my family, to my community, to my employer. Again, we have to understand that our value is not tied into our bank account. In those days, my bank account was 0. So you would tell me my value was 0. I don't think so. Matter of fact, if you ever want to measure your value, is measure it according to how you serve humanity. And that's how you'll see you're a valuable person. So I walked out the door. She encouraged me. She says, Richard, I don't know anybody smarter than you. I'm looking at her like, wow, me? I don't even have a high school diploma. And then she said, Richard, I don't know anybody has more courage than you. You're so courageous. I'm thinking, me? I have courage? And then she reminded me, she said, never forget who you are. Never forget your last name. Never forget what your father and your grandfather taught you. Now go handle your business. And I walked out that door. Just imagine if you do those 3 things. If you inspire, encourage, and you remind people that work for you what they're capable of doing. So I got to the plant, and everybody's there. Chief marketing officer, financial officer, everybody, every vice president is just full of these educated people. But guess what? Everyone in the room is a pharaoh. Remember I said, what's a pharaoh? Everybody's looking at me with just, mean looks, we call it mad dog, and everybody's mad. Everybody's mad. And I'm thinking, why are you all mad? Well, I didn't understand at the time. Everybody was mad because they were like, why did the CEO drag us all the way down here to hear this uneducated janitor? Don't you realize that I have a PhD? Everybody in here, we're scientists. And this guy's just, mopping floors. I said, whoa, wait, hang on. I have to remind people, I have a PhD also. You see, I've been poor, hungry, and determined. So I was so nervous, I've never done anything like that in my life. What am I doing? And everybody, no one's cheering me on. Everybody's, kind of on the other side. So I got up there and I started my presentation. To my amazement, guess what? I had their attention. So when I finally, finished, a hand went up. Now, it was from a young marketing executive. I knew what that meant. That was a question. I literally, like a child, looked the other way to ignore his hand. I was so scared of it. And he said, Richard, I have a question. I thought, oh my God. Inside, I'm thinking, Judy didn't get me ready for questions. And I said, sir, we don't have time for questions. And, he kind of giggled. So it's just a simple one. And I was like, okay. What is it? And he said, that's great, Richard. Before I tell you the question, I want you young people to understand that I don't care what room you're in. There's always at least one person in that room that's going to try to steal your destiny. Your job is to understand it, know it, be prepared for it. It's coming. So that what he was trying to do was steal my destiny. The meeting was going too good. How much market share are we talking about? Market share. I thought, oh my God. I haven't read that chapter yet. So I almost fainted. I didn't know what to do. And I saw a door. I thought, I'm just going to run out that door because after all, I shouldn't be up here anyways. who do I think I am? You know, I was that little boy on the green bus, a little boy with the burrito, little boy that struggled with English all over again. I said, you know, I'm tired of this. I'm not going to do this. Why am I even here? But you see, there was something inside of me that was greater than the fear that was outside of me. And I will close with this story. This is the antidote to fear. Get a hold of this and you'll never be afraid again. Some of you probably already have it. So let's go back to the 60s. Remember, sometimes you got to revisit your past so you can find your future. Well, in those days, they brought in trailers, after school trailers, where they would teach us how to read. One trailer was for Spanish kids, and the other trailer was English-speaking kids. And every Tuesday, listen to me, every Tuesday I got into the line that I was told to get in. They said, Richard, that's your line. So one Tuesday I did something that, like I said, I've always been doing, is I broke ranks. And I got into the English line. And you sure heard my own saying, Ricardo, estás loco, you're in the wrong line. And I was scared because it's the 60s. There's going to be a beating. That's just the way it is. My teachers are going to spank me, or these teachers are going to spank me for not being in the line that I was told to get into. I looked inside, two beautiful blondes, and I saw something that I knew that was in there. And I looked at my friends. What did I see? I saw cookies. And I told my friend, they have cookies inside. I'm going to get us some cookies. So as scared as I was, I got closer and closer. I didn't know what those ladies were going to do. You know what they did when I made it to the top? They filled my pockets with cookies. Now you're wondering, what's the moral of that story? Two parts. First part, I want you to understand it. There's a cookie that's been baked for you. Your job is to get out of that line they told you to get into and get into the cookie line. Get out of the job line, get into the career line. Get out of the poverty line, get into the prosperity line. Ladies and gentlemen, the line is your choice. How dare anyone try to tell us or our children which line they should be standing in? Last part is what drove me to break ranks. Simple. I was hungry. As simple as that. Hunger is the antidote to fear. When you're hungry for that promotion, fear will leave. When you're hungry to start that business, fear will leave. When you're hungry. So back to the question. I've said this many times, greatness will come in a ridiculous form. As scared as I was, ladies and gentlemen, I was hungry. I was hungry to do something good for my last name. I was hungry to do something great. I was hungry to, start the legacy for my family. I was just hungry. So the fear left because the hunger was greater. So many times greatness come in a ridiculous form. I didn't know what market share was, but I remember the racks, how big they were. And I thought, oh, I got it. And I said, this much market share. You know how ridiculous that statement is? And I could hear the whispers. Oh my God, did he just say that much market share? But I said the room was full of pharaohs. Well, there was two deliverers in there. One was the CEO and the other one was the president of the West. The CEO stood up and he had turned around and he addressed his team. He said, ladies and gentlemen, do you realize that Richard just taught us how to go after that much market share? And there was a young man who later became the CEO. And he was the president of sales. And he said to a sales team, can we go get that market share? You know that ridiculous statement made me a legend of my company. People ask me all the time, did you really say that? And I said, absolutely. So that's how Hot Cheetos came into existence. Today, it's somewhere around, hovering around the $2 billion a year globally. And I've created several, over a dozen products after that. And each one is either $1 billion or 500 million a year. So this challenge is for every leader. When you see your people, what do you see? When you see the janitor, what do you see? My CEO, when he looked at me, when everyone else saw what I was, listen to me, when everyone else saw what I was, he saw what I would become. That's what great leaders do. So that's my story as quickly as I could share it with you. And, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you guys so much.
Richard, thank you so much. What an incredible story.
Thank you, Jim.
It really is incredible. We've got lots of great comments in the comments as well. People really have enjoyed hearing from you again today. And I couldn't be happier that we had you. You know, as I shared with you in our conversations, you know, I grew up on food stamps and Medicaid, and I think we're both really blessed in what's occurred in our lives. And I think we've got lots of lessons, and I really appreciate you sharing yours. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. You know, and as I said earlier, you know, I appreciate leaders like yourself who have gone through some type of adversity. It's easier for you to connect with your team, you know, and so I appreciate you very much, Tim. Thank you.